use for landing. We'll probably be wrapping up pretty quickly right after that, but if you want to join us for kind of a post-show, consider joining us over on the TLP Discord. It's free to we'll be hanging out in live comms there following today's mission, pulling up some pictures from our Rocket Chaser team as those come in, as well as hopefully cross your fingers, we have our first ever TLP remote cameras at Launch Complex 39A. So first stab at taking some pictures right up at liftoff. We're hoping the fog will clear enough that we can at least see the rocket in view in one of those shots. And we're super excited. I want to say thank you to SpaceX for having our team on site as media for today's launch and their continued partnership with us being able to be on site, bringing you guys the best possible coverage of everything at NASA Kennedy Space Center. We can only do that, though, thanks to your guys' support in helping make TLP possible. We're on that road to 100K, so if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, or space news update. And make sure you head on over to tlpnetwork.com to check out our brand new launch control, where you can see a launch calendar of all the upcoming launches so you never miss another launch there. Let's listen back into SpaceX Mission Control.
We're now at almost T-minus 6 minutes and 30 seconds, and the SpaceX team continues to count down for launch of our third operational Falcon Heavy flight, and all systems remain go. At this point in time, fuel load is complete on the second stage, as well as one of the side boosters. And there we just heard the call out that the fuel load is now complete on the other side booster, as well as the center core. Now, following a successful static fire last Thursday, Falcon Heavy rolled out to the pad with a payload yesterday and went vertical about 6 hours later. You can see a time lapse of that there on your screen. Before we began the webcast today, the SpaceX launch director pulled the members of the launch team and got a go for prop loading and launch, which, as I just mentioned, we're currently undergoing. We're loading propellant on all three first stage boosters and the second stage. You may be able to hear the live rocket sounds from our launch pad. The pops and hissings that you hear are from the propellant loading, as well as the launch mount and strong back that the propellant is flowing through. Falcon Heavy uses two propellants, a refined form of kerosene called RP1, or Rocket Propellant 1, and that's the fuel, and LOX, or liquid oxygen, for the oxidizer. An oxidizer is a type of chemical that a fuel requires in order to burn. The liquid oxygen is chilled below its boiling point so that it has a much greater amount of mass per volume. Basically, we can load more of it into the rocket. Our fuel is RP1, essentially a purified kerosene. It is safe, easily available, and has a lot of history. As a fun fact, the Saturn V first stage, flown from this very pad for moon missions, also used liquid oxygen and kerosene.
Heavy tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
And then we just heard the call out. We are preparing for that strong back retraction. Now, in addition to the two propellants I mentioned, we also use the chemical TTEB, or triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane, as an ignition source. The combustion of RP1 and LOX is what makes the rocket go up, and it's the TTEB that basically sets the match for that propellant mix.
Strong back lower has begun.
And we can see there on your screen shortly that we will begin to see that strong back begin to retract away from the fairing. In preparation for that retraction, the clamp arms around the second stage opened, and that allows the strong back to recline away from the vehicle. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is our first Falcon Heavy flight in 3 years, and a lot will happen in the first 4 minutes of flight. First, we will light the two side boosters, followed by the center core. Then, about 40 seconds after liftoff, we will decrease power on the two side boosters in preparation for max Q, after which Falcon Heavy will then throttle back.
Inline LOX load is complete.
So there we heard the call out that one of these side boosters is now complete with its LOX load, fully loaded with all of its propellants. Then it looks like we can see that strong back retraction happening now.
LOX load is complete.
We are now fully loaded with LOX on the other side booster. So 2 minutes into flight, we will again reduce thrust on the two side boosters, this time to decrease forces on the rocket structure overall. The vehicle at that point in time will be much lighter, but the thrust remains constant. At 2.5 minutes into flight, we fully turn off the side boosters with the booster engine cutoff, or BECO. This pneumatic
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And there we heard the call out, stage 1 LOX load is complete. So at this point in time, both side boosters and the center core are now fully loaded with its liquid oxygen and RP1. Once clear of the side boosters, the center core will throttle up to full power and until the center core shuts down with main engine cutoff, or MECO, and then separate from the second stage around the 4-minute mark. From that point on, very similar to Falcon 9 mission, side boosters will be making their way back to Earth for recovery. The fairing will separate, and the second stage will take the USSF-44 payload out into space. Just as a quick reminder, at the request of our customer, we won't be showing views of the payload, so we'll be ending the webcast just after our side boosters make their way back to land at LZ1 and LZ2, and that will be a little after the T+8-minute mark into flight.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
So there we heard the call out, stage 2 LOX load is complete. So at this point in time, Falcon Heavy is now fully loaded with all of its propellants. As I've mentioned before in previous webcasts, launch is hard. Falcon Heavy is no exception. We're essentially counting down 3 rockets simultaneously. So our team is going to be conservative in case anything pops up in the last minutes of the countdown. In addition to the fog around the launch pad, we can see some of the white clouds there around the vehicle. Totally normal. That's just the liquid oxygen basically
Ground gas closeouts.
vaporizing as it comes into contact with the ambient air. Now that those closeouts are complete, as we just heard that call out, we should see more of that. Next, we'll hear the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup.
Falcon Heavy is in startup.
All right, at this point in time, Falcon Heavy's onboard flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. Great view of the base of Falcon Heavy there.
MD, LD, go for launch.
LD, this is the MD. The MD is go for launch.
And there we heard the final go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds and counting.
Here we
Let's
go.
listen in to the final count as Falcon Heavy gets ready to go to space once again.
T-minus 15 seconds and counting. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. Vehicle is pitching downrange. Inward, the chamber pressure is nominal.
Falcon Heavy has cleared the tower successfully for the first time in 3.5 years. Listen to that rumble.
Nominal power and telemetry.
Pounds of thrust. Headed to space. The throttle down in preparation for max Q, moment of peak mechanical stress on the rocket.
Falcon Heavy is supersonic.
There we just heard the call out that the vehicle is now traveling faster than the speed of sound. What a beautiful sight.
27 Merlin engines, all firing
All
together.
right, there we just heard the call out. That is the moment of peak mechanical stress on the rocket. M1D engines throttling back up. A beautiful sight to see Falcon Heavy flying once again. Shortly, we'll hear the call out for MVAC chill, indicating that the second stage is prepping the MVAC engine.
Vehicle is following a nominal trajectory.
We will flow a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen through the turbo pumps on that MVAC in preparation for the full flow of the super chilled propellant.
You can see a live view of that telemetry on the right side.
Each side booster on the right-hand side of your screen. Next event will be booster engine cutoff, or BECO. That'll be followed by stage separation of side boosters, side booster boost back burn, center core main engine cutoff. We are about 10 seconds away from the booster separation.
Waiting to see those two boosters burn off and separate. There's BECO, booster engine cutoff.
Side core booster separation
There we go.
confirmed. And the engine shift has started.
And there you can see and heard it by the incredible excitement within the crowd behind me. Successful separation of the side boosters.
Boost sector started.
There we can see 3 engines on each side booster have relit for their boost back burn. At this point in time, both side boosters are
All
returning.
vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Good news there, both side boosters and the center core, everything looking good. Side boosters are returning to the coast of Florida, now under the power of 3 engines. That's a view there of the center core. Coming up, 3 events happening in rapid succession. We'll have the conclusion of the side booster boost back burn, followed by main engine cutoff, as well as stage separation of that center core. As a reminder, per request of our customer, we won't be showing second stage views after second engine start 1. Additionally, our center core, or stage 1, the one you see there, is expendable today, so we are not recovering this booster.
Boost back burn shutdown. Nico. Stage separation confirmed.
And there you heard the call out and saw on your screen we had side boost back burn conclusion, as well as the main engine cutoff and separation for that center core, and we heard call out of second engine start 1. At this point in time, with that call out,
Separation confirmed.
we will wrap our coverage pertaining to the second stage, keeping our focus on the
All
side
vehicles
boosters,
continue to follow nominal trajectories.
which you see there. Unfortunately, looks like
Acquisition of signal from Bermuda.
the cameras on
cameras
those
are
side
dirty.
boosters are a little fogged over. We heard confirmation of successful fairing separation. While second stage continues on its journey, the fairing halves will fall back to Earth, where we will attempt to recover them using our recovery vessel, Doug.
This whole mission just shrouded
As a
in
reminder,
mystery.
today we'll be attempting to recover the 2 Falcon Heavy side boosters on land. You can sort of make out some cloud coverage there in the background camera. We'll bring that back to you whenever we're able. Now, in just a few minutes, the side boosters will execute an entry burn followed by a landing burn. Both burns are meant to slow the side boosters down rapidly before landing. At the time of separation, the side boosters were traveling slow enough to turn around and make their way back to land at our side-by-side landing pads. If we have successful landings today, it will mark the 150th and 151st successful landing of an orbital class rocket. As I mentioned earlier, center core is going to be expended, and we are not attempting to recover it. This allows us to utilize
All vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
all the propellant on board and deliver peak performance for the payload delivery.
That telemetry that you can see above me is still following that first stage as it will go to its eventual apogee and then will be expended into the ocean there. But boosters are on their way back to the pad, waiting for their entry burn here in the next minute or so. Those live views there on the just to the right of me looks like they got a little bit dirty during launch, so we we're hoping that we'll have some clear pad views, which we know right before launch it was pretty clear. But those onboard cameras may not be the most beautiful views here today. This mission just clouded in secrecy with the fog and the clouds, and now some dirty cameras. But Falcon Heavy successfully launching from LC-39A. Let's listen into mission control, and there is entry burn startup.
There we heard the call out that the booster entry burn has begun. Looks like the ice on those cameras are now clearing.
And NYFTS have saved. All vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
So that re-entry burn has concluded. We're expecting the landing burn to begin in about 30 seconds.
Looks like those cameras decided to clean up.
Vehicles down significantly as they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere.
Look at those shots.
Amazing
those
tracking cam views of the boosters as they return to landing zone 1 and 2. We can see the grid fins there.
Both side boosters transonic. Stage 2 FTS is saved. Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
We can see those grid fins steering the boosters for a precise landing.
Look at the speed they're
Again,
coming
we're
in.
attempting landing.
Landing burn.
Landing zone 1
Come on.
and 2. There we just heard sonic booms. And there you have it. As indicated by the enormous cheers, we have successfully landed both Falcon Heavy side boosters at landing zone 1 and landing zone 2. What an incredible sight. With these two side boosters, this marks the 150th and 151st overall successful landing of an orbital class rocket. This is the 21st landing at landing zone 1 and the 4th landing at landing zone 2. And with successful confirmation of our side boosters landing, that will bring today's webcast to a close. We'd like to thank the United States Space Force for entrusting us with today's mission. Thank you to the Range and FAA for licensing today's launch. And we'd like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in for an exciting morning. Now, if you're interested, head over to our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. Hope to see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And there we go. Falcon Heavy officially mission complete after 3.5 years, successfully launching from Launch Complex 39A. If it was your first time here, don't forget, take a moment, subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, or exclusive one-on-one interview. We're going to quickly rewind that back because those landings, I don't think, those are some new shots that we've seen. So I want to spool this back here for just a second. So bear with me here. As we do this manually, as we watch this landing here. Again, an incredible view as those boosters came back in. We're going to take a few moments, answer some more of your questions. If you have questions, you can send those to us in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. But Falcon Heavy is back. Another successful mission. We'll pull up a replay here of that beautiful landing back at landing zone 1 and 2. Of course, the core stage being expended into the ocean, and that second stage going into some secrecy on where it was going. But if you notice, we left our telemetry up because we were still getting telemetry from that second stage. So if you were keeping a close eye on that, or if you rewind, you can see a bit of where that second stage was going for it. Of course, it's going to make maneuvers after, but we did still have confirmation that it was going into a good orbit, that we saw that line circularizing here. But coming up again on that landing burn, a truly incredible shot. Before we wrap up here today, coming up to that landing burn, you can see the absolute speed they're coming in at 1,000 kilometers an hour, and they're less than a kilometer above the ground. And then that landing burn firing that one Merlin engine in the middle, and they come down to a nice slow hover right before it. They touch down perfectly on those pads. First time both pads have been used in quite a while, so it's great to see there. some new angles as well, some of those classic shots, but that one in the top left is definitely a new angle. Interesting to see there from one of the tracking cameras. But 2 side boosters are back. They will now go through refurbishment in preparation for another launch down the road. We've got many Falcon Heavies coming up in the near future, and of course you can follow along and know when the next launch is happening over on tlpnetwork.com. We've got our brand new launch control. That's where you'll be able to follow along with all upcoming missions, as well as take a look at replays of previous launches and check out today's launch in history, as we'll be featuring those as well. And another favorite part is launch statistics. You can open that up and jump into launch statistics and see on this day for this year and in all time everything's happening. Next missions that are coming up, we've got a Soyuz launching tomorrow, and then we do have a couple unconfirmed missions right now. So anytime you see orange, that means it's a date that we have set, but we have not had a confirmation from the launch provider, but we are targeting a window, or we have something pointing towards that. If it's green and it's in color, that means we have had confirmation from the launch provider. And gray means to be determined, but we want to put it at least on your timeline, and then you can go into the full calendar there and see all of the upcoming launches, as well as some of our featured launches. So we hope you'll join us for our Artemis live coverage from rollout starting in just a couple of days, and we are counting down now 12 hours, 15 minutes, 15 hours, 12 minutes, 40 seconds, and counting until hopefully we begin our journey back to the moon. But that is going to do it for us here today. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And this was our live launch coverage of USSF-44, launching from Launch Complex 39A on the return to Falcon Heavy flight. If you haven't yet, follow us over on Twitter. We'll be tweeting out photos from hopefully our remote cameras if they had a view of the pad before launch, but also from the press site and other events coming up. We'll also have confirmation of other missions that you can follow us along with, and also join us over on our Discord. We'll be hanging out in live comms following this as kind of a post show. And make sure you head on over to tlpnetwork.com, click on shop. You can get all your shop stuff 10% off today with promo code LAUNCHDAY. All of that goes into helping us continue to bring you even better coverage with our own tracking cameras and live 24/7 cameras coming early next year. So make sure you take a moment, check that out. Global shipping is available and still time to get your orders in for the holidays. But for now, this is Zach from TLP Network Studios. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.